The complete works of Swami Vivekananda, The Future of India, address by Swami Vivekananda, Part 1. This is the ancient land where wisdom made its home before it went to any other country. The same India whose influx of spirituality is represented, as it were, on the material plane by rolling rivers like oceans, where the eternal Himalayas, rising tier above tier with their snow caps, look as it were into the very mysteries of heaven. Here is the same India whose soil has been trodden by the feet of the greatest sages that ever lived. Here first sprang up inquiries into the nature of man and into the internal world. Here first arose the doctrines of the immortality of the soul, the existence of a supervising God, an eminent God in nature and in man. And here the highest ideals of religion and philosophy have attained their culminating points. This is the land from whence, like the tidal waves, spirituality and philosophy have again and again rushed out and deluged the world. And this is the land from whence once more such tides must proceed in order to bring life and vigor in the decaying races of mankind. It is the same India which has withstood the shocks of centuries, of hundreds of foreign invasions, of hundreds of upheavals of manners and customs. It is the same land which stands firmer than any rock in the world, with its undying vigor, indestructible life. Its life is of the same nature as the soul, without beginning and without end, immortal, and we are the children of such a country. Children of India, I am here to speak to you today about the same practical things, and my object in reminding you about the glories of the past is simply this. Many times have I been told that looking into the past only degenerates and leads to nothing, and that we should look into the future. That is true. But out of the past is built the future. Look back, therefore, as far as you can. Drink deep of the eternal fountains that are behind, and after that look forward. March forward and make India brighter, greater, much higher than she ever was. Our ancestors were great. We must first recall that. We must first learn the elements of our being, the blood that courses in our veins. We must have faith in that blood and what it did in the past. And out of that faith and consciousness of the past greatness, we must build an India yet greater than what she has ever been. There have been periods of decay and degradation. I do not attach much importance to them. We all know that. Such periods have been necessary. A mighty tree produces a beautiful ripe fruit. That fruit falls on the ground, it decays and rots. And out of that decay springs the root and the future tree, perhaps mightier than the first. This period of decay through which we have passed was all the more necessary. Out of this decay is coming the India of the future. It is sprouting, its first leaves are already out, and a mighty gigantic tree, the Urdhva Mula, is here, already beginning to appear. And it is about that I am going to speak to you. The problems in India are more complicated, more momentous than the problems in any other country. Race, religion, language, government, all these together make a nation. The elements which comprise the nations of the world are indeed very few, taking race after race compared to this country. Here have been the Aryan, the Dravidian, the Tatar, the Turk, the Mongol, the European, all the nations of the world, as it were, pouring their blood into this land. Of languages, the most wonderful conglomeration is here. Of manners and customs, there is more difference between the two Indian races than between the European and the Eastern races. The one common ground that we have is our sacred tradition, our religion. That is the only common ground, and upon that we shall have to build. In Europe, political ideas form the national unity. In Asia, religious ideals form the national unity. The unity in religion, therefore, is absolutely necessary as the first condition of the future of India. There must be the recognition of one religion throughout the length and breadth of this land. What do I mean by one religion? Not in the sense of one religion as held among the Christians or the Mohammedans or the Buddhists. We know that our religion has certain common grounds, common to all our sects, however varying their conclusions may be, however different their claims may be. So there are certain common grounds, and within their limitation, this religion of ours admits of a marvelous variation, an infinite amount of liberty to think and live our own lives. We all know that. At least those of us who have thought and what we want to bring out these life-giving common principles of our religion, and let every man, woman and child throughout the length and the breadth of this country understand them, know them, and try to bring them out in their lives. This is the first step, and therefore it has to be taken.